Good morning, class and Royal Commission. I am Rachel Notley, leader of the New Democratic Party of Alberta. Unfortunately, I'm away on travel to try to better the lives of all Canadian citizens. I tried to get some unconventional footage in the airport, but the man sitting next to me did not particularly like that I took out my phone, so I decided to put it away. Today, I have come to speak before all of you to talk about the pressing issue of the widening income gap in Canada. However, before we talk about these crucial problems, I wanted to tell you a little about my roots, where I came from, and where my vision has come from, so you all have a deeper understanding about me. I was raised in northwestern Alberta and used to work with my father building fences and go into town to get the resources that we needed. Probably a very foreign concept to you all, having to go into town. My father, Grant Notley, was the first NDP member of the Alberta legislature and fought hard for the workforce in Alberta. During the recession in the 1980s, I worked out of a small office in Edmonton designed to assist those who sought to find work. However, that tiny office was not enough. I wanted to help people, help those who needed an extra set of hands. I ran for office to be Premier of Alberta in 2015 and won. It placed shock into many of our citizens, but I know that it was what was right for the province. As Premier, I brought Alberta to be the first province to have a $15 minimum wage, stabilized healthcare, and placed higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy. During my time as Premier, though it was successful, I faced problems and barriers just as anyone would. However, these may have led to the results of the 2019 Alberta Premier election, where Jason Kenney of the United Conservative Party beat us. To give some history, in October of 2014, Alberta fell into a deep recession, resulting in unemployment rates to skyrocket. Since the oil prices dropped so quickly, 133,000 jobs were lost because of our unbelievable cyclical unemployment issue. This recession also caused Alberta's gross domestic product, or better known as GDP, to drop so significantly that it dropped by $10 million. Maybe not a lot for many of you, but enough for governments to develop deep plans to make change. However, this caused unions in the province to band together regardless of the recession. They wanted their workers to not feel the heftiest portion of the impact. For example, Unifor, the largest private sector union in the country, came together and worked with the NDP government through this terribly hard time. They worked to make sure that these workers found their job security and their place in the Alberta economy. As an Albertan, I know better than anyone that trying to get a job in the oil sector is a daunting task. It being an oligopoly market and only having a few firms to work with, it can be intimidating and scary, especially if it's your only trade. With the supply of oil in Alberta right now, due to the delays of construction in the Trans Mountain Expansion project, it is hard. Demand from Alberta is down because of the concern other nations have of Alberta being the only place with a decreasing oil price while everyone else's is raising. Since Alberta is coming out of this recession, it is important to note that we're between a trough and an expansion. It's difficult for us as we're accustomed to actually being in a recession or being on some sort of middle ground. Right now, the province isn't totally sure where they are, which is why it was such a hard decision to make a choice of who to vote for in the last election. Distributive justice is defined as the perceived fairness of how rewards and costs are shared amongst a group of people. To have a fair society, it's my true belief that wealthy individuals and corporations should be taxed more in order to pay their fair share of taxes. This is clearly seen from my work as Premier, as I raised taxes for the wealthy because I knew it was necessary. Even if it meant not all of the voters would like me in the future, Alberta needed it. As a country, we need to be able to coach one another where our strengths are and recognize that we have room for growth and be okay with receiving advice. For me, I know that I could be a good resource when it comes to coaching my countrywide colleagues on how to work with their parliaments to decrease the income gap and increase taxes for those in the 1%. I know that the solution to the income gap is complicated, as one's advice is not tangible, nor can you conceptualize it until it is happening. However, I think as one of the largest land masses in the world, it is our obligation to our citizens that we are working with one another when an individual has a strength that others are able to take advantage of it to further benefit our country. More than that, we identify ourselves to be the true North, strong and free, and how do we allow ourselves to consider ourselves strong if we are not working together? In Canada, individuals who live alone and make under $24,000 live under the poverty line. Families of 4 who live alone who live together of combined income makes $37,000 live under the poverty line. In Alberta, we have an adopted flat tax system, which means everybody who makes below $128,000 pays 10% of income tax. But to tighten the widening income gap, I believe that it is so important for that low-income families to pay significantly less amount of taxes. I know that in other provinces there's more of a progressive system. However, I think it is important for all governments and all peoples of sorts to have to pay less if they are under the poverty line, like significantly less, as well as give them credits from the government because they are under the poverty line, and how else are we supposed to help them? The New Democratic Party was established in 1961 and brought two movements together to have Canadians rally behind them. A strong standpoint that we have is that the wealthy do not necessarily need luxury items, and that instead of purely imposing a higher taxation system, a solution could be that we create an excessive spending tax. It can be federal-wide and can be on items like yachts, luxury cars, and not limited to, but houses above 4,000 square feet. To conclude, these ideas are all important and necessary to consider. It is vital to note that no matter what you do, it is important to stand for our economic goals, specifically of political and economic stability. For the sake of distributive justice, it is my belief that wealthy individuals and corporations should be taxed higher. Along with that, coaching across the country, having tax credits for those below the poverty line, and have higher taxes on excessive spending can be strong solutions to close a widening income gap in our country. I want to thank you all for listening and apologize once again for being out of the country on business through this important Royal Commission.